Have you ever been ghosted by someone? Do you know what ghosting is? So there's an article called The Unspoken Reasons Behind Ghosting in Online Dating, unpacking the reasons why people vanish without explanation. A lot of us autistic people, we meet somebody, we make a good first impression, and then things may get awkward because they may be neurotypical people and they might not understand our eccentricities with our autism that might not be glaring at the time, but we might come off as a little bit awkward, and some people don't know how to deal with it. And so, because of social media, because of being able to block somebody through social media, being able to block somebody on their phone, a lot of people just don't know how to deal with bringing up hard subjects and trying to work through them. A lot of the times people just think that if somebody isn't perfect, that they just bail. And so there's a lot of reasons behind that. So this article is written by Jenke Skjolsbrekk, and must be Norwegian or something. But it's I will post a link to the article, so I'll go through it pretty quickly. Ghosting is when someone you have been talking to or dating suddenly stops responding to messages or calls without any explanation. Ghosting is frustrating and can leave the other person feeling confused, hurt, and rejected. Some reasons for ghosting are convenience, lack of communication skills, and the desire to protect the other person's feelings. Well, when it's the other person, it's probably their feelings because they don't want to have to explain their own awkwardness and how things aren't going to work out, and they don't know how to break up. They just know how to run away. And no matter the reason, ghosting can be hurtful, and it is important to be open and honest with dating partners. So, bottom line is that a lot of the times now, because of convenience, people just bail. If they don't find the perfect match right away, they just bail. And, the next person just is a swipe away. And people go on these, they just keep on swiping. They do doom scrolling. They're looking for that perfect person that does not exist, because reality is not what social media produces. And most people are that use social media in order to increase their dating. They don't increase their dating skills. They just increase their dating. And then when the person disappoints, they don't even give an explanation. They just get up and they just bail. And if you try and contact them after they're ghosting you, you can get accused of being a stalker, and all sorts of trouble can happen for you. And they're actually doing you a favor, because if they can't handle telling you what they don't even want to talk about, then what kind of a romantic partner are they going to be? They're going to be a terrible one. And if you start falling for them, and later on you find out how emotionally immature they are, and how they can't handle criticism, how they can't explain themselves to you, they're doing you a great favor, because you may have taken them out once. You may have taken them out to a nice place and spent some money on them. But just imagine what would happen if you were in a relationship with this person, and then you moved in with this person, and then you changed your whole life for this person, and then all of a sudden they just disappear. Or they just break up with you, and then they start accusing you of stalking them because they won't give an explanation and they can't explain themselves. And then it's all your fault. It's none of their fault. And they're running away. And then they're calling the police and getting you all into trouble when you're just trying to get an explanation about what's going on. A lot of the times with relationships, logic doesn't exist. And a person who's emotionally immature, they are not going to be able to deal, especially with somebody who's autistic, somebody who's high end on the spectrum, somebody who is able to mask very well. And then all of a sudden we get closer and closer, so we start showing our eccentricities, and then somebody gets frightened and they run away. So with this, they point out, but why do people choose to ghost? Convenience. You're just another person, another date is just a click away. Lack of perceived skills. They don't know how to socialize. They know how to do surface level relationships. That's what they're good at. That's what people who are neurotypical are very good at. And a lot of us autistic people, a lot of us that are neurodiverse, we're into deep conversation. And sometimes it can get awkward. And sometimes we will reveal stuff that people aren't ready to hear. Sometimes we're looking for them to reveal things about themselves. And then all of a sudden they get scared because they're not normally used to talking that way. And then they run away because they haven't dealt with those things themselves, and they don't want to have to deal with them, and they're not in love with you yet. And so they're bailing. And so, they're in a relationship of convenience, and there's, a lot of the times it can be transactional. It can be just having fun, and you may be seeking a deep relationship, and they may be looking for a surface relationship. They might want to date other people, and you may only want to date one person at a time. People have different goals with relationships. People have different goals with friendships, because these things can work with friendships as well. So if you are just wanting a friend, and then things get awkward, and then that person ghosts you, don't try reaching out too much, because they may also do the same thing with accusing you of being a stalker. So you have to be very careful about this stuff, because sometimes people will just automatically call the police and file a report, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of stuff that didn't happen. Then you got to prove, and then you got to go back into your texts, you got to go back into your phone calls, you got to go back into your emails to prove all this stuff didn't happen. And then when all these people are is emotionally immature and very surface type people, in which you're a deep person, you really, when you do show your feelings, you really show your feelings. That's what most people that I know of that are autistic, that's what they do. They don't show their feelings just to anyone. They show them to some particular person that they are willing to trust. And then all of a sudden, sometimes things can get awkward, because then all of a sudden that person can be sharing more than especially if it's a neurotypical person, more than that neurotypical person can handle. And they're not used to doing that, because they're used to surface level relationships, whether it be a friendship or a romantic relationship. So there are no alternative solutions. There are alternative solutions, but the person that's ghosting you doesn't know of them, because their go-to is just to block you and to call you a stalker if you try and track them down. And so be careful of these people. They're actually very toxic, and they have major problems, even though on the surface you would never know. And but you get deeper, then they've had lots of miscommunications with a lot of their relationships, a lot of their friendships, and they're the ones that you need to stay away from. Now, it could be your fault. You could be doing something inappropriate, and they might not have explained to you that it is inappropriate, and all of a sudden you frighten them, and what you don't think is inappropriate, they think is inappropriate, and they don't know how to deal with you in order to explain to you, well, that was inappropriate, do you realize that? Blah, 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 and have an actual conversation about it. People don't want to have conversations anymore, especially deep ones. People are dealing with surface relationships, surface conversations, and that's what neurotypical people are great at. And a lot of us neurodiverse people have problems with. And I can speak from myself when I reach out to people and tell them secrets, they're deep secrets. And I'm trusting that they can handle that, and a lot of times they just cannot. I reached out to some people and told them about my condition, my Asperger's, my neurodiversity, my autism. And actually, they, on the surface, they said that they understood, and oh wow, you shared this deep secret. Oh, thank you for trusting me. But then 2-3 days later, all of a sudden they're acting out against me and doing exactly what I was telling them that I was getting disturbed by. So I don't know if it's just awkwardness. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. But at the same time, they really didn't listen to what I was saying. And they didn't really care about my feelings. And they didn't really care about my special circumstances. And they really showed it by their actions. And that's how people show what they really mean in this world, is by what they do, not what they say. Because people say a lot of things, but they only do a certain amount of things. And if you have to keep on reminding them, they don't think you're important enough to really remember what you're telling them. And so what they think is that you're doing the undesirable behavior, and it's your fault, not theirs. And so it doesn't matter whose fault it is. If they don't want to be around you, they're doing you a favor. So just bail and just move on. Don't get too attached, especially in the beginning, because you probably know just as well as I do, a lot of the times people are there for you until there's a stressful situation, and then they bail very quickly because they don't want to deal with stress, because they have enough stress in their lives and they don't want you to add to that. And they're not willing to reach out to you. And that's just the way things are. There are trustworthy people out there, but they're far and in between. So you have to find those people. And then the people that aren't necessarily trustworthy, you can keep them at a surface level, because that's all they can handle. They can't handle 100% of you. And that's just the way it is. And it could be their fault, because they're just not thinking like you are. So that's the whole deal, is that you think differently than they do. You act differently than they do. You respond differently than they do. And sometimes they just can't handle that. It's just too much for them. And what kind of relationship do you really have with them? Do you really know? Have you actually talked about it? A lot of the times people don't want to talk about these deep issues. They really don't. They would rather, if it's friendship between guys like to watch sports, talk about girls, talk about their conquests about girls. If they have children, they like to talk about their children. If they have wives, they want to talk about how their wives nag them all the time, and how it's all their wives' fault and it's none of their fault. And then that is what it is. And so the relationship really, and then you sit around to drink a couple beers and you watch the game together, and then you go about the rest of your day, going home and separating, and then you call up for the next game, and that's kind of the way it is. Or if you do physical activity together, working out or playing sports together or fixing things, that's what you're going to be doing. It's activity centric, usually with guys. And with relationships, romantic relationships, or, you're taking her out, and, she wants you to talk about deep things, but if you actually do, that may scare her and she may run away. So you have to be careful. You have to take it slow because she may not be used to that, because that's not the way typically guys are acting, because most guys are just talking about surface level stuff. And, that's the way it works. And most guys are not going deep. They're not, they're talking surface level. So, protecting the feelings of the person that's being ghosted. Yeah, right. I don't believe that for a second. They're protecting their own feelings. They don't want to feel bad by hurting you because you're a nice guy. And they don't want to hurt you, which is basically they don't want to tell you what they really feel. And they don't want to see them hurting you. And they don't want to get the feedback that you're going to be giving them when they do hurt you. Because if you can't handle it, so the whole thing is, can you handle the truth? If you can, then it's their fault because they're feeling awkward and they're not ready to be able to tell you the real facts. So they're not really a real good romantic partner. They're not a real good friend. They're an acquaintance. They're somebody that you go out with, but not somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. So they're doing you a favor. It's the new normal. Yeah, of course it's a new normal because everything's about convenience. Everybody is disposable. Everybody is a brand. Everybody has to protect their brand. So it's better just to run away and just deny the reality of it. They're just gonna ghost you. They're just gonna turn your notifications off. They're just gonna block your phone calls. Gonna block your texts. Act as if you never existed, as if it never happened, because that's easier than having to say things were good for a while they were good, but things are getting awkward and I don't know what to do about it and I don't know how to fix it. And do you want to try and fix it? What can we do about it? And people don't do that anymore. People will just run away and look for the nearest substitute, because you might have been the substitute for the last partner that they had or the last friend that they had, and they're just moving on to the next. There's tons of people out there. There's tons of connections. There's tons of distractions. While she's dating you, she might go to the bathroom and might get a text from somebody else that she dated in the past or might want to date in the future, and then all of a sudden, or she could be swiping while she's while you're in the bathroom, and all of a sudden she sees some guy that's that's better looking than you and has a better profile than you, and then all of a sudden she gets interested in that person, and then you're just yesterday's memories, which will be long forgotten in a week or two. So be careful out there, because I do sound jaded, and I am jaded, unfortunately. And but dating is hard, and finding the right people to be with, whether they be friends or romantic relationships, it's difficult out there. And be careful out there. So keep your hopes up, but at the same time, make sure that you protect yourself and go slow, because if you go too fast, you're going to scare people away. You know this. I know this. It's happened in the past. And if you continue doing the same patterns, it'll continue happening in the future. So, with this, I hope you have a good weekend. And hopefully, tonight's going to be a Saturday night. And hopefully, you have a nice date night. And you have fun and make the best of your life. So, this is Dan. And this has been Finding Your Hidden Superpower, Autism, Asperger's, and those of us who are neurodiverse. Please click, like, subscribe, let people know about this YouTube video, and hopefully it's helpful to you. Write comments. I just saw that I got a comment. I don't get many comments, but I'm going to be getting back to you. And I liked your comment about the sleep. So if that was you, I'm glad you came back. And I thought your comment was very helpful. So have a great day. Bye.